Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, a Republican from Indiana, I've talked a little about her already, is the co-chair of the House Hunger Caucus, and she believes food security should be a bipartisan priority. She has sponsored legislation to do away with legal roadblocks that discourage restaurants, grocers, and farmers from donating excess food to those who need it most. I spoke with Representative Walorski a short while ago. Take a listen.
Representative Walorski, thank you so much for joining us today. I think really even before COVID hit, I had been interested in the food supply chain in the country and sort of how it works when it's healthy, but how we also deal with those folks that live in food insecurity. And I know that hunger is one of your big causes. And I just, in the light of the times we're in now, we don't seem to be connecting all the dots the right way because we still have a lot of folks that live with food insecurity. What do you think are the most important priorities we need to get in place to begin affecting change, real change for people that have these challenges?
Yeah, thanks. I think that we have made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I think, when you look at this issue of food insecurity, Jim McGovern and I'm a couple here. Jim and I don't agree on anything politically, but we do agree upon this one thing, and it's the issue of hunger.
I should tell our audience that Congressman Jim McGovern, real liberal guy, friend of mine, up Massachusetts, not often in Indiana, I bet, but I just wanted to add that.
We started working on this about 10 years ago and really understood that this has to be a bipartisan solution. And then and it also has to be an evidence-based bipartisan solution. It has to focus on things like casework, where, people that need help on the front line that are very vulnerable don't just need a government check with a number on it. They need human interaction, human connection. And we saw that. And we've been working on that ever since. And so, we've been able to do some great things, I think, on a bipartisan level. But I think this is even the next plateau up so that we can actually get the attention of the country and of the president and of all the shareholders to basically say, we have solutions that we think would work. We want to try it. We want to try it at the highest degree because, we've always had food insecurity in this country. Well, now you add inflation and other factors to it, and now we are in, a real mess. But the difference is, I think now we're prepared. We're prepared to present ideas at the national level and use our local communities as examples to say, what, we can do this and we're going to do it. I think sometimes it's a little difficult for people to look and say, maybe they're used to being involved in the feeding program in another country, and they just look past our own country and our own neighborhood and our own local area. Well, this is the time to really start looking inward and saying we can do this in a bipartisan way, evidence-based. We have a lot of good ideas, and I think this will give us quite the boost that we actually need to get this to the next level.
Now, I happened to be looking at Senator Joe Manchin's Twitter feed the other day, and he had this great chart that said, let me tell you what inflation is doing for people at home. So it had how the prices of peanut butter had gone up, of steaks, of gas at the pump, all sorts of staples in various ways that were part of a regular person's, regular family's, interaction with stuff they were buying. And these were huge jumps. You mentioned inflation, which I think is a real serious problem for this country. And we went from a period where they said, oh, it's going to disappear in a couple of months and be transitory. Well, that story doesn't look like it's too strong. So I'd just be interested as we kind of look at food insecurity. These are people who are working, who have incomes, that are buying stuff. That's another dimension that's been added on top. What do you think the Biden administration is getting wrong when it comes to approaching inflation?
Well, they're getting nothing right. Let me start by saying that. And I think it's a disaster. I actually think it's a disgrace that we have a president in this country where we came into a cataclysmic environment with COVID, and then we come into another cataclysmic environment with all of the shortages and ships sitting out in the Pacific Ocean and nobody doing anything about it. Now you look at store shelves are empty, and we haven't done anything about the huge block of insecurity. And to your point, now we just put another gigantic block of food insecurity, because now the decisions aren't just normal food insecurity programs that we all support at home. Now it's, do I put gas in my car? Do I try to find food here? What do I do with the 50% increase in propane and it's wintertime in the Midwest, and I'm a senior citizen on a fixed income. So I think what is happening here is this is an urgent matter now when it comes to food, but this president has done nothing to unclog that short pile of sitting in the position in the Pacific Ocean. He's done nothing to make sure the shelves are full inside of these stores, and he's done nothing to help with energy prices at the exact same time. And you know what is happening in my district? People are afraid. It's the middle of winter. It's 9 degrees today above zero, and they have to pay for everything now and an additional $250 a month of this inflation. So we're really on tough times. I'm glad we actually have some ideas and solutions to food insecurity, because the president has not made this any easier.
You know, and you're talking about those people sitting with 9 degrees weather, and you're a lot of folks in the nation also facing, you know, really skyrocketing energy costs. It's just not gas at the pump; it's heating oil, it's, you know, all these other things. But I wanted to also say that, you know, something I didn't know until I read about some of your legislative work was I didn't know that we had roadblocks to restaurants and grocers and farmers in food donations, which made zero sense to me. And you have to have legislation that actually opens these up. What's the deal there? I mean, I'm just like, okay, you know, sometimes you just kind of hope that eventually common sense prevails. But what is keeping the folks with the food from donating food to the people who need it?
Bureaucracy.
And I'm sorry to laugh about it, but it's still, you know, it's like,
but
wow.
you know what? It's big government. It's bureaucracy. It's the government trying to take all these things upon themselves and make them work, when we could be engineering right now public-private partnerships that would open the doors wide open and let that food flow. And that's what has to happen in this country right now. Yeah, it does take a move of Congress to do this. I know. I think it's insane too. But you're
in a farming district, right? So, but what's keeping those producers of food or pork or whatever? And we're hearing about how beef, you know, how I remember during COVID, how pigs were piling up, and there was no place to put all of that produce that was being there. Can you just explain to our audience who may not understand this why they couldn't donate that food to those that need it?
Rules and regulations, and they might have been little tiny ones, and people don't think anything about it if you're not in the industry, but it does matter. So one of the things that we learned quickly was, hey, we have all this pork out here that's being destroyed by the millions of poundage, and we have food banks all over our districts specifically. Why can't we get that food over there? And why does it take, you know, a giant leap of mankind to make this happen when we were just destroying food over here and hungry people were over here? What this bill does is just blends that together, and it just makes it easier road. It takes a lot of the goofy length of time that's in there, and then some of the goofy rules that it takes to actually get something into the hands of people. But we're doing it. And I think that's just really important to say, we're doing this. We're learning in the middle of a pandemic, in the worst economic situation we've been in 40 years, in a bipartisan way. We're learning how to do this. I mean, Jim and I have worked on it for a long time together, but here we are right now with the Food Donation Improvement Act of 2021 that I dropped. It basically is going to make this a partnership that's synonymous, just like a public-private partnership. We don't need government at every turn to make this work. A lot of this is common sense Hoosier solutions. We just need to get the government out of the way. And I think you'll see improvements much quicker and faster, because we've learned this on the run. Evidence-based programs. How difficult is that to understand? And how successful is that when you employ that tested and tried evidence-based program that uses people, case management, instead of numbers and computers, and actually tying back into the human need? Really important, right. Very simple.
You know, I'd love to hear this story of your district, Congresswoman Walorski, and how they are dealing with these times, in the sense that, you know, I know Speaker Pelosi the other day said, look, inflation is a natural part of having this many people employed. When I look at the numbers, there are a lot of people, there's a huge jobs gap out there, and a lot of people haven't gotten back into those jobs and positions. What is the job situation and the job gap, you know, in your district in Indiana? How is that reflected nationally when it comes to too few workers and too many slots in this time?
I always appreciate Pelosi's words when she's a part of this whole problem. But let me tell you something. I'm glad you asked about that. In my district, the unemployment rate is 0.9. It's the lowest unemployment
Wow.
rate in the country, 0.9. And let me tell you what's still happening. You know, they have jobs, they're working, and they're getting money taken out of their left pocket and their right pocket to feed this big government machine of inflation. So places where you wouldn't even believe people are struggling, they're struggling. Today, the cost of gasoline, a gallon of gas is $3.40. A pound of hamburger is about $5 a pound, and bacon is probably $8. And I sit in the middle of the pork industry. Tell me how that makes sense. This is just the foolery that's going on with somebody at Speaker Pelosi's level, trying to tell one of the biggest working environments we have in the country, which is my district, that they must not be doing something right. They must be doing this and doing that. They are doing something right. They're taking care of their families. They're working. They're trying to stretch these dollars to make sure they can pay for everything that's being caused by an out of control Biden administration.
You know, just finally, Congresswoman, you've said very nice things about Congressman Jim McGovern, and you know, it's nice to hear of this bipartisan moment of two people across the aisle working together on this. What are some of the other dimensions of your partnership with Jim McGovern on the food and hunger challenges that we might look forward to this next year?
Well, you know, we established this hunger caucus because we really believe that this deserves the attention from the American people on both sides of the aisle. You know, there's probably still people all over the country that would look you and me in the eye and they'd say, we don't have a hunger problem in our district and our neighborhoods. And, you know, I beg to differ and say you probably do, because you know what, when I realized the kind of hunger needs in my own district and the people that were doing their best and working and raising kids and still not having enough food to make it, that's when I got involved, rolled up my sleeves and said, I'm going to change this. I'm going to work with whoever will work with me. And Jim and I have done that. We established this caucus, this hunger caucus, so other members could join us. And we can collectively now start making real differences in neighborhoods and using those as a model to put out to the rest of this country. I'm really excited. I mean, I'm not running away from problems, certainly, and I'm not a runner away from problems. I'm a solution builder, and I can see light at the end of the tunnel that we are almost there in making the kind of connections we need to really impact the food insecurity and food deserts in our districts and around this country. So I'm looking forward to this year, looking forward to the fact that we're elevating this whole issue again, and we are going to have solutions that work.
Well, Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, who's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, she's ranking member of the Subcommittee on Worker and Family Support, and she, with Jim McGovern and others, is the creator and co-chair of the House Hunger Caucus. Thank you so much for talking with us. It's important to remember that real people are out there having a tough time right now, and I'm very grateful for you sharing with us your candid views on how to approach it.
Thanks so much.